Hey, what's going on? Welcome to the Doug Show Live. Let me know if you could hear me in the chat. It looks like things are working okay, but it's always good to double check. Today, we're going to go over a sort of newer AI tool out there, one that I have found to be very useful for some specific things, which I'll show you. And it's called NotebookLM, which should be Notebook Language Model, I suspect. And it's by our friends that we love to hate over at Google. But this is the AI side, not the search side of the house. And if you have any questions, if you have any thoughts, if you've used the tool, let me know. We'll do a little demo. And basically, I've been using NotebookLM for sort of research / getting ready for podcasts, or I guess the research angle can go in different areas, but basically you can input your own data so you don't have to rely on the information that the language model like ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude, whatever it was trained on, which may or may not be correct. And the cool part is if you just want to analyze the specific data that you have, then you can do it. And that includes PDFs, links, YouTube videos. I think you could put in some other stuff too. You could copy and paste text into it. And then there's a few presets that you can use. So if you want to have like just a brief on what the information is, then that's one thing you could do. We'll look at the presets and see what it can do, but there's also a chat section, just like many of the other chat and GPT type tools. You could chat and say, give me an outline for this specific area. I want to focus on this topic area, and I'm going to write a blog post, so give me a detailed outline, that sort of thing. You could say, give me a script for a YouTube video. Give me bullet points to talk about for a YouTube video. So really whatever you want, it can provide. And it only considers, as far as I know, it generally only considers the data that you've input as one of the sources. So it's very powerful that way because you don't have to worry as much about hallucinations, and it actually leaves like footnotes so that you can reference the original document if you want to go deeper, or if you think, hey, that was a great section, I want to look a little bit more, or maybe you read it previously and you're like, I don't remember that. Is that actually in there? And you can go and refer back to it. So let's jump into it today. And actually, we'll wait a couple minutes for people to hop on here as well. But I was off last week. My voice was a little scratchy because I went to FinCon. Very fun conference. It was held in Atlanta this year. I'm from Atlanta, so I visited with some family while I was down there. And always a very fun conference. I get to hang out with friends that I met in years past. This is my 4th year, so I have several, probably a few dozen friends that I know from FinCon, which is cool. And then you end up meeting new people. One interesting thing is, my understanding is FinCon started in, I don't know, say 2011. Could give or take a few years. And then it continued growing until about 2019. I want to say there were like 2,500 people there or so. A lot of big parties. And it was just like, it was really fun from what I heard. The first year that I went was 2021. So it was just after like things kind of opened up after the pandemic. And everything was a little scaled down. It was a much smaller conference. I don't know how many people attended. I think it was still over 1,000, but a lot of the big rooms, the big ballrooms were like too big for the number of people that were there. So it felt small. It felt kind of weird. Of course, I didn't know any different because I've not been to any of the others. So anyway, I think it's growing a little bit more now, and people took a hiatus for a little while. So maybe they went for a few years up to 2019 and then they stopped. So I met a handful of people that haven't been in like 5 years, and then they know a bunch of my friends, but I never saw them before. So got to connect with them, and maybe they had a blog, maybe they had a podcast, and then they stopped, actively publishing because they have, other stuff going on. They moved on. They're not blogging anymore. Another interesting thing, as we're waiting for a couple more people to hop on, is the fact that blogging and SEO was not discussed very much because SEO kind of sucks right now. I think we all know it. I've stopped talking about it as much just because it's just all bad news. And Paul is on what's going on. I'm gonna try to add this to the broadcast. Last time I tried to do this, it died. So we'll test it here. So Paula says, "Happy Tuesday." Happy Tuesday. Yeah, we're back on schedule here, and hopefully we'll get some guests coming up. I had someone that maybe was going to come on, but they're busy on Tuesday, so I'm going to probably just record their interview and just publish it on the podcast. So, yeah, blogging is devastated. So it's like FinCon. There were a few like people in the SEO world, but for the most part, it's just creators. It started as like the Financial Bloggers Conference, but then it expanded to all creators. And now most of the conversations are really around YouTube, social media, and so on. And all right, hold on one second. I am on, it's funny, I'm on this, I don't know if y'all can hear it, but I'm on this group text thread, and holy shit. People are just texting like crazy. I have not responded to any of them. I just need to silence these. All right. I hate group text. So my watch is buzzing and all that kind of stuff. All right. So yeah, FinCon was awesome. They actually lowered the price. So it's actually going to be out in Portland next year. Good beer town, fun town overall. So I already bought my tickets, and I encourage people to check it out if you have any like light interest in that topic area. Very fun. Back in the day, from what I'm told, people that were just in the audience would come, and it was like a good chunk of the attendees. They even had a social pass where like you didn't go for like the networking, you didn't go for like the talks and stuff. You just went to hang out in the lobby and just maybe in the expo hall where people are hanging out, and you walk around and get to chat and hang out with your the people that you listen to their shows, or you read their blogs and all that stuff. All right, so we bought some time. Hey Paula, just curious, have you used NotebookLM before? Is it something that you've checked out? All right, so we'll hop over to the landing page here. And the tagline here is understanding information that matters. So basically, it's an AI research assistant. Here is the idea. You upload PDFs, links to websites, YouTube videos, audio files, Google Docs, Google Slides, and NotebookLM will summarize them and make interesting connections. It's using Gemini 1.5, and it's pretty damn good. So you get these instant insights. So they'll give you a few different presets, which we'll look at, and you actually get the source as well. Like I said, there's a little footnote so you can see, where it's from. The thing that I think went viral and got a whole lot of attention was this podcast deep dive, and it's AI generated voices. There's two people, and it will have a discussion back and forth going over the information. So one person asks a question, and it's a pretty good discussion overall. A few of my friends tested it out, and they were like, yeah, I sent in a blog post and I got like a 10-minute discussion that's engaging. It's pretty concise, and it actually does an excellent job. This is something that is, I don't know. It's a great way. Let's say, actually, this is a real thing that happened. So I get a lot of pitches to interview authors that have books coming out. I hate that. If you have a book coming out, I don't want to hear from you, basically. So, it's hilarious. Yeah, I don't want to hear from you. However, sometimes my friends have a book coming out and I will help them out because they're my friend. And basically, I could feed in a PDF. And a lot of times when you get a book early, it's in PDF format. So I would love to have it in like a Kindle format so I could read it on my Kindle, take notes, stuff like that, or have a physical book to read. But a lot of times you just get a PDF. PDFs are not great for Kindles because you can't really enlarge the text, and it's usually like really small font. So it's extremely hard to read. So I could feed in someone's 200-page book in PDF format and then basically listen to a summary, a deep dive situation in podcast format. So it's pretty amazing. And I've thought about like actually doing that, pulling down the audio, and then like getting the transcript and taking the transcript and then putting my voice with some other AI voice. It's an interesting take because it could be like half of a show is like my voice, and then the other half of the show is just some generic AI, which would be really cool. The interesting thing when I listen to the audio deep dive, it ends up being it's imperfect. They use filler words. They take pauses. It's like me talking right now. It's not perfectly clean. There are some awkward pauses. I'm trying to figure out what to do. And that's exactly what the audio deep dive is like. And finally, this is a very surprising one, is Google says we value your privacy and do not use personal data to train NotebookLM. So I would say that's shocking. They're not going to use it. And, I'd read the fine print. I wonder if they somehow still use it because it's Google. All right, David's on here. What's going on? And Paula says that she hasn't used NotebookLM yet. So overall, they say you can basically do research. You could study and go through like FAQs, like it can quiz you, that sort of thing. You could also create a polished presentation with key talking points and supporting evidence. Now, I haven't done the presentation thing, so maybe we'll try that out, and we'll spark new ideas so you could brainstorm ideas, do market research, competitor analysis, and so on. One of the first use cases that I heard someone talk about was taking feedback from customers, like copying and pasting all the feedback from customers and then putting it into NotebookLM and then getting sort of a summary of like what is going on. Additionally, you could put together a database of frequently asked questions and then their answers if you had answers for each one. So in the scenario that I'm making up here, you would have like your customer service, your support team, maybe there are emails and tickets going back and forth, and you could see the question from the client, the answer from the support team, follow-up questions, and how it was eventually resolved, and then end up with a concise, frequently asked question along with the answer. So that would be a really cool way to go through it. All right. And let's go ahead and start messing around. Jaded says, NotebookLM is the real deal. Yeah. So here we are, and this is a specific notebook here. So the idea of NotebookLM, so it's like your notebook, like you're taking notes, and that is the language model. So I don't have any saved notes, but you could see here, I was doing like pre-research for a discussion. So it was Coast-Fi topics. So you could put in various sources here. And in this case, so this is a Coast-Fi topic, and I went to another podcast that I know does really good research, and I basically fed that in. Now I'm trying to remember. Okay, so I fed a link in this case. So this was a specific link, and there was a transcript on the podcast webpage. So I was able to feed it in. So I was able to look at the overall transcript. It gives us a summary, right? So here's the full, all the input data right here. So that's pretty long. But we end up with the summary that's only, a long paragraph right here, a few hundred words, I would say. Talks about the key topics as well. So that's one of the sources. The other source is, I believe it was a Reddit discussion. Yep. So I put in a Reddit thread where there are, random people answering. It considers the whole thing, and you could see the whole Reddit thread is in here. So again, instead of having to read this whole thread, we have this summary right here, along with the key topics. So we have this, and let's say we want to, so the idea is you have this language model over here, which we could add more stuff to if we want to. I'm going to minimize that. So you could add a note. There's some noted questions here. So that might be a good way to do it, but let's just click around here. Let's look at the notebook guide. So notebook guide, help me create, these are the presets that I mentioned before. So you have FAQs, a study guide, table of contents, a timeline, and a briefing doc. You could also generate this deep dive conversation with 2 hosts. Let's see how we can customize it. So it says things you could try, focus on a specific source, a specific topic, and target a specific audience. So that could be a really good way to customize it for what you're looking for. So they have suggested questions. So let's do the FAQ really quick. I'm going to get a cough drop. And my voice was actually completely better. I'm just a little dry today. Okay, so we have COSFI FAQ. So it goes through some definitions. How do you calculate the COSFI number, benefits, downsides, and so on. So pretty good note here. And this, honestly, this could be a detailed outline for a blog post. Now, and it's a saved response here. So we have this note, it's an FAQ. Let's go back to the notebook guide here and create a study guide. So with a COSFI FAQ, I could take that and maybe go over to Claude, for example, which does a better job at writing content, and ask for a specific maybe audience or a style of blog post, or maybe I have a set of instructions to write the blog post, or you can go to ChatGPT and basically have a blog post written based on those FAQs. And you could ask for it to be formatted properly and all that stuff, and you're off to the races. Now, here's the study guide. So this is the thing where maybe you're, let's say you're taking a beer judging exam. So you could put in the input data, and then you could go ahead and have questions created. So you could go through like it's a quiz. Or, you know what? Let's say you're a teacher and you're a little bit lazy. Not to say that teachers are lazy, but if I was a teacher, I would use the tools that I had available. So maybe I would go through and do this. So you have a 10-question quiz here, and then you could go through and they give you the answers. There's essay questions as well, glossary of terms, and all this stuff. So pretty amazing. And let's just go through all the things here. So table of contents. And I haven't used this one. I'm not sure what you do with that. So it takes a second. So the timeline here, so it creates an outline. Okay, not bad. It creates an outline, pros and cons. I'm not sure, like the timeline situation. Maybe that comes into play if you're using something that actually has like the order of events. Let's say you enter a bunch of news stories or something like that. Then the date might be a little bit more relevant, but in this case, I don't think it is. Or was that table of contents? I did table of contents. Sorry. Let's do the timeline now. And it takes a second or two. And just curious out there, any other AI tools that people are using or checking out? Okay. And yep, indeed. So the timeline of events focuses on dates, but there's not any here, so it's not really relevant. I think if you had something that actually had some timing components, that would make a difference, but that's not really relevant here. So I'm just going to delete that one. All right, keep moving, and then the briefing doc. So this should just be like a summary. And it's pretty cool. So next thing I'm going to do, while it's working, you can say view chat. So it's like more of a chat situation. And then it's a little bit redundant, I think, because it's covered in other areas, but what are the main advantages and disadvantages of Coast-Fi? So I'm going to click that, and that's working in the background, I believe. Yep, it's working in the background. So now I can take a look at the briefing document. So depending on what you're doing, the briefing document might be perfect for like the research, just so you're familiar with something. So it gives you the main themes, most important ideas and facts, quotes, which may or may not be relevant. I only put in 2 sources, so it's not super impressive. And then discussion points. So this could be great if you were like going over a topic. Let's say you were teaching a lecture or something. You can go over the topic. They kind of lay it out for you there. And then you have discussion points where you could have like a group discussion. Let's go back to the chat. Advantages and disadvantages of Coast-Fi. So again, this ends up being basically what can be an outline for a blog post or a podcast episode or a YouTube video or whatever content you're creating. So I'm curious. So we have the advantages and disadvantages of Coast-Fi. So I will say I'm going to try to create a set of social posts. All right, so using the advantages and disadvantages above, create 5 social media posts with text and suggested images. So I haven't tried this before, but let's just see. So hopefully there'll be like some amount of text. I wasn't very specific on what to include, but I could have said maybe, make sure that you actually, spend time on each one of them. So let's see what we got. And it was pretty damn fast. So here are 5 social media posts about Coast-Fi, advantages and disadvantages. So psychological benefits of Coast-Fi. So we have a few sentences about the topic. There's emojis, there's a hashtag, and a suggested image. And post 2 is career flexibility with Coast-Fi. The text is ready to ditch the 9-to-5 grind. Coast-Fi can unlock career flexibility. And there's another hashtag. So yeah, we have 5 of them here. So I would say that's pretty good. I would go with that. I'm not big on social media, but I'll give it a thumbs up there. So you could take this and copy it and put it into a spreadsheet or wherever you're trying to record everything, or you could save it to a note. So that's the other thing in the text. You can save the messages to a note. So it's kind of like a cool little post-it note situation. And then you end up with these sort of these notes all around. So pretty cool. All right, let's see if we covered everything from the notebook guide. Okay, very good. So one thing we're going to do is generate, and it gives you suggested questions again. So that's pretty nice. So we're going to generate the deep dive conversation. And I think let's see. I think we may be able to get you guys to listen to it also when I have I think I can play the system audio. So once it takes a few minutes to generate, and it'll do it in the background. And again, I haven't played around with this, but there's a scenario where you can take that audio, create a transcript from it, and then put your own voice onto it. I have no idea the copyright information issues that you might have, but the fact that you can do it is pretty interesting. One thing I've played with is the AI voice from Descript. And it's a little off. The cadence is kind of fucked up. It doesn't sound quite right. It sounds like my voice, but it's just a little bit off. But I do wonder about some of the other tools out there. I know Brooks Conkle told me, I think the tool is called Studio 11. And basically, you train it on your voice. People like Brooks and I, or other people with podcasts, well, they have tons and tons, many hundreds of hours of audio. So I could train it pretty easy. And then you could create the audio version of it. So I do wonder how that could work. And you could really go down a rabbit hole with this, because, when I'm thinking about it, I only put 2 sources into this particular notebook. But a couple of the others, I can't remember which ones, a couple of the others I put in like 5 or 6. And that's where it gets really interesting, because there's a lot more data sources and a lot of different takes. And that's where this sort of research comes into play. Now, of course, if I did this, I would just atrophy my brain here, because it's taking away some of the thinking that I would do. So I'm curious some of the use cases that people could figure out. So audio is still generating. I think at least one of the, like the Money with Katie, I think that one is a pretty long transcript, so it could take a little while. One thing I did while it's working, was I put in maybe like 50 or 60 pages of a book that I was working on, and it spit out, I think maybe like a 30 or 40 minute interview, which was cool. I was like, that's probably pretty thorough, and it doesn't go over the same thing more than once. There's no redundancy, and then you just end up with like a tight conversation about that specific topic. So, all right. So it is still working here. We'll take a quick little pause here, and I do want to give a shout out to Linkify. Linkify has been working on a campaign for me. They do digital PR. Previously, they worked with Haro. Haro is now rebranded to Connectively, I think it's called. I'll pull that up to Connectively. And Linkify has been able to get me some insane backlinks out there, which I'll show you in just a second. I just need to pull those up. So, number one, I could share the screen again. And Haro is now part of Connectively. So basically they changed it up a little bit. And now I think you get, instead of unlimited pitches, if you're a source, it would take, as many as you wanted to put in, but I think you might get a few of them for free. Then you have to pay a small amount, like $1, but it's enough where it cannot be automated so well. So they were getting too many spammers. So they work through Connectively and probably a couple other websites that work like this. And Linkify, you could save 10% if you go through my link and use the coupon code DOUG, Doug. And this is Chris Pantelli. I've interviewed him a couple times, and he goes over his strategy. So if you're curious, you could check it out in those other previous episodes and a lot of other testimonials out there. Yeah, they get crazy links. So they got me one on NASDAQ.com, Yahoo Finance, and the most recent one was over here on Ahrefs, which is perfect. So all I did was do the onboarding information, and then they got back with this link. So they're still working. Hopefully they'll get a couple more, but I got a link back to my website, branded to the homepage. So check out Linkify. And if you want to learn a little bit more, you can listen to the interview that I did with Chris. So now we have the Coastify topics here. And I believe that you'll be able to hear this. And Jaden said the audio is the best feature. Paula said this would be great for exam prep materials or even continuing education materials. Oh, yeah, totally. All right, so if I unmute it, I think I'll be able to play it, and I think you'll be able to hear it here.
Welcome back. We're going to be diving deep into the world of Coastify today.
Coastify.
Which is that magical point, I guess you could say, where your investments could potentially carry you all the way to retirement, even if you decided right now to never put another dollar in.
It's like reaching escape velocity, but for your finances, right?
I love that analogy.
Yeah, you're not necessarily stopping work entirely, but you've built up enough momentum to coast to a traditional retirement age.
Exactly. And to really unpack this idea, we've got two great sources to pull from today.
Okay.
First up, we've got an episode of the Money with Katie Show podcast.
Yeah.
They really break down Coastify with some real-life stories and examples. And then on the flip side, we've got this super interesting Reddit thread where people are kind of debating the finer points of Coastify.
Yeah, love Reddit.
Oh, you know how passionate Reddit can get?
Yeah, absolutely.
So to help us navigate all of this, we're going to be tackling some key questions today.
All right.
First up, how do you actually calculate your Coastify number? Is it really a reliable safety net, or is it more like wishful thinking?
Yeah.
And what are some real-life complexities that we need to keep in mind? Because personal finance is, well, personal.
Yeah, it is personal.
Right. What works for somebody else might not be the right fit for you or your situation.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, let's start with the basics then.
All right.
How do we actually go about figuring out our Coastify number?
Yeah.
Both the podcast and the Reddit thread offer some guidance here.
Yeah, in the Money with Katie Show episode, they really break down the whole calculation process.
Yeah.
And they emphasize this idea of the power of compounding returns.
Right.
And they use like a hypothetical 30-year-old couple who are aiming for retirement at age 55 as kind of their example to walk through.
Yeah, so imagine this couple. They already have $250,000 invested.
Okay.
Now, if they assume like a 7% rate of return, which is roughly the historical average for the stock market, they could potentially hit $1.35 million by age 55 without putting in another single dime.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Amazing, right?
The power of compounding.
The power of compounding.
Yeah, and then the Reddit thread gets a little bit more into the weeds.
Okay.
With like a specific formula they provide.
Yeah.
Coastify number equals FI number times 1 plus the interest rate raised to the negative number of years to retirement.
Okay, that might sound a little intimidating, but stick with me here, folks.
Right.
It basically means you take your target FIRE number, which is often calculated as 25 times your annual expenses.
Yeah.
And then factor in your estimated rate of return and how many years you have until retirement.
Okay. So pretty awesome. And I think hopefully it sounded like a few of you have done this before, and it's crazy. Yeah. So, and the thing is, like, because again, I only put in a couple inputs here, but if you put in a bunch of inputs and you just kind of want a summary, like, it could do it for you. And I actually wonder if you can give it a guide on like how long you want it to be. If you're like, I want a 10-minute summary, I don't, regardless of how long it is, just like wrap it up quick. You could change the playback speed here if you want to, and you could download it if you want to, and delete it, of course. Let's look at the fine print. So audio overviews. I'll zoom in for you here too. So audio overviews are deep dive discussions. It's an experimental thing and some notes to get you started. AI overviews are AI generated, so there might be inaccuracy or glitches. They're not comprehensive or objective view, but simply a reflection of your sources. They're only in English at this time. It could take several minutes. You need edit access in order to generate or delete an audio overview. You can share feedback with thumbs up and thumbs down. So yeah, it's so ridiculous. And you can turn on like public access and then share a link. If you're like, hey, I want other people to see this, you could share it out there. So, and again, I think this is one of the most impressive things. Paula says it's pretty slick. Jaden said that would be interesting. It's the most natural AI I've heard. Diana says, is there a limit to the number of sources? I think there is, but I can't remember how many. I can't remember how many you could put in here. Oh, in here, you know what? Let's put in some more sources. So we just put in 2, but let's see what happens if we put in more. And you could do a Google Doc, Google Slides, website, YouTube video, or copy text. And I'm gonna hop over to YouTube and just find like some videos. I feel like the transcripts will be fairly fast for the tool to generate. So I'll put it in Costify. And you don't need to see this, so it's no big deal. All right, so I will get the link, put one here. And a lot of times these end up being like podcasts, but not all of them. But they're relatively concise, which is good. Let's add another source. Anyone know how many sources you can put in? Does anyone know in the chat already? And I'll just put in a couple more. Almost done. All right. So I put in several more sources here, and now I'm actually not 100% sure if I could like regenerate the audio. I guess I could delete it. Yeah, so delete conversation, and then I guess I could regenerate it if I want. Let's create the study guide. Actually, we've kind of already done that stuff, but I'll do the study guide since it's fast. And then what I'll do is ask for a detailed outline for a podcast episode. And okay, Paula has done some research. Thank you, Paula. Paula says, it seems like you could have about 50 sources, which is, I mean, you could write, probably some books don't have 50 sources, right? So you could have a pretty comprehensive situation here. All right, so we have a little study guide here for all this stuff. Great. So now we have, appears to be 6 sources. I'll say, provide a detailed outline for a podcast. All right, so we'll see what happens here. And it appears like if you create the audio, and then you add more sources, you could delete the existing audio and then regenerate it. So, oh, do we already have it? So here's the outline right here. And that's pretty amazing. So we have the whole thing here. We have the conclusion, all the details, super awesome. And we can see, it's a podcast outline for finding blah, blah, blah. Great. So let's say we're doing a YouTube video. So provide a script. Can't spell. Okay, provide a script for a YouTube video, and I'll say target 8 minutes. And then we'll say, the thing is, so we're just like sort of slicing and dicing it in different ways. So here, again, it's very fast. The audio takes a few minutes there. So they give you a suggestion for the opening shots and what the visual is. They give you what the narrator says in each little section. And they say, this is a target of about 8 minutes, which I could buy. I don't have a word count on this, but it looks like that could be viable. And yep, whenever you want to see it again, you could just click it and then you're in good shape. And you could just, what's the best way to, I guess you just copy and paste it like this, and then you could paste it into a doc or whatever you're doing. So now let's say we want an outline for a blog post. We'll say we want a writing brief. Okay. And Paul also says, I'm a tax pro, and this has amazing potential for the various IRS publications about the same topic and issue. Okay. And Jaden says, you think Google will start charging for it? Yeah, I bet. Great. And then, okay, so we have detailed outline. We have the writing brief here, which obviously it's better if I would have said who the target audience is or whatever, but this is a great starting point. So typically how I would advise people to use the AI tools is get you to a starting point, and then you could adapt it from there. The thing that I mentioned before, I think is a real potential issue where it's just like, if you do this every time, you are probably becoming worse at generating ideas and thinking through things on yourself because you haven't had to do it. And I have been doing this. Basically, I can prepare for a podcast in the way that I just showed you. I put in a couple pieces of information. I get an outline, a couple bullet points, and then it's like 95% done. I'll go in, I can add my blurbs, my own thoughts here and there. And really, I end up riffing on my thoughts anyway, or the discussion with another person. We end up just going back and forth. But you could be in a situation where you're like, I'm just going to follow what's in this outline and not do anything else. And then you would you would get worse at coming up with ideas. That's true. So I know when, there are times when I'm not using the tool, right? Most of the time I'm not using the tool, and I'll get a Post-it note or a blank sheet of paper and then write out like whatever it is I'm going to do and whatever I'm going to say. And then, I go through a few revisions or something like that. And that's probably the better way to do it. And then you can take that stuff and then take that brainstorming that you have done and put it into a tool and then ask for like what else you should add. So that might be a better way to do it instead of turning to an AI tool first. But then if you put in your information and you think about it yourself and you brainstorm and then you put that in as the input, then you won't be, making your brain weaker and worse at thinking. So, Tony's on, had to go to football practice. So pretty amazing tool. And I do, again, the audio summary stuff is really super cool. It's pretty amazing what it can do. And it would be awesome to, like, if you were, from my standpoint, it would be awesome if I was able to put in my voice and it do as good of a job. Because the thing is, like, Descript, it can create my voice and read a script that I put in there, but it doesn't sound right. It just doesn't sound right. So that's one of the issues with the script. I think if you just had to replace like a word or a sentence or something like that, it could be useful, but that's pretty rare. I mean, I'm not doing surgical type edits like that on a per word basis. And I think, looking here, just like the more questions we have. So I'll pop up the guide again, and then there are more questions. And the thing is, like, these could be blog posts, they could be social media posts. You could just use these questions, like, what are the benefits and drawbacks of Coast-Fi compared to other stuff? And like, boom, there's a YouTube video, right? Like, it kind of feeds you these ideas. These are essentially keywords or, search intent out there, and there's a bunch of them. Like, I don't know how long it keeps going, but it'll even work on them in parallel, which is kind of cool. Yeah, it looks like they just there could be more and more of these. Let's go back to the chat. So we have the main advantages and disadvantages. We're all the way back to the chat. Okay, I got to go back here. Main advantages. I feel like I lost a couple of them. How does Coast-Fi help people retire? Transition. Okay, so I think we've gone over the main points here. As I mentioned before, you may take the summaries and like these answers right here, and then maybe you would go to a tool that is more optimized for creating content. Again, like Claude. I think ChatGPT is very good. I was chatting with Matt Giovanisi the last couple days, and he talked about how much better Claude was than ChatGPT for creating content. I knew it was better, but I haven't played with it in many, many months. I mean, I can't remember the last time I used it. When I started paying for ChatGPT, I was still using Claude for a little while until Claude started charging, and then I pretty much stopped using it. I was like, I only need one of these tools right now. I don't use it that much. So, and Jaden says Google outputs are marked, so I wouldn't use it anyway. And I think the key is, and this is something Matt brought up as well, but like, I don't think Matt or I would use the AI tools for publishing blog content to rank in Google or otherwise. However, it could be a great starting point, and you can use the content for other mediums. So, if I take this information, then I go to Claude and I get a nice outline, maybe even a script for a YouTube video, the written content is not the final product. It's not what I'm publishing. It's going through a couple other steps before it is in the medium that will be published. And I think if you use it that way, especially like with video, there's so much that's relying on the creator from either an editing standpoint or presentation standpoint, or the B-roll that might be there or not there. So if you use it that way, then it's probably totally fine. I mean, there's no issue because there's so many layers removed. Okay, I think that covers it for today. Shout out again to our friends over at Linkify. And one thing I just updated my Mediakit. So if you're interested in advertising on this live stream, on my podcast or email list, let me know. You could check out the Mediakit. Just trying to get that in a good spot. And then if you want notifications, it turns out that YouTube does a bad job notifying people that these live streams are happening. So you can go follow the link in the description for signing up. There's a form. You basically get an email from me before I go live. I try to send it a few hours before I go live, so you're able to plan ahead and all that. But typically, I'm going to try and do it at this time, Tuesdays at noon Mountain Time. That's all for today. I'm going to hit the gym, and I'll catch you guys later. Thanks.